of Management Studies IGNOU presents an audiobook on the course Mmpc 010 titled Managerial Economics for MBA Program. Presenting Block 1 titled Introduction to Managerial Economics. Unit 1 Scope of Managerial Economics.
Objectives. After studying this unit, you should be able to understand the nature and scope of managerial economics, familiarize yourself with economic terminology, develop some insight into economic issues, acquire some information about economic institutions, understand the concept of trade-offs or policy options facing society today. Introduction. For most purposes, economics can be divided into two broad categories, microeconomics and macroeconomics. Macroeconomics, as the name suggests, is the study of the overall economy, and it aggregates such as gross national product, inflation, unemployment, exports, imports, taxation policy, etc. Macroeconomics addresses questions about changes in investment, government spending, employment, prices, exchange rate of the rupee, and so on. Importantly, only aggregate levels of these variables are considered in the study of macroeconomics. But hidden in the aggregate data are changes in output of a number of individual firms, the consumption decision of consumers like you, and the changes in the prices of particular goods and services. Although macroeconomic issues are important and occupy the time of media and command the attention of the newspapers, micro aspects of the economy are also important and often are of more direct application to the day-to-day problems facing a manager. Microeconomics deals with individual actors in the economy such as firms and individuals. Managerial economics can be thought of as applied microeconomics, and its focus is on the interaction of firms and individuals in market. When you read a newspaper or switch on a television, you hear economic terminology used with increasing regularity. For a manager, some of these economic terms are of direct relevance, and therefore it is essential to not only understand them but also apply them in relevant situations. For example, GDP growth rate could impact the product a manager is marketing. Change in money supply by the RBI could impact inflation and affect the demand for your product. Fiscal deficit could affect interest rates and therefore investment spending by a manager, etc. The focus of managerial economics is on how the firm reacts to changes in the economic environment in which it operates and how it predicts these changes and devises the best possible strategies to achieve the objectives that underlie its existence. The economy is the institutional structure through which individuals and firms in a society coordinate their desires. Economics is the study of how human beings in a society go about achieving their wants and desires. It is also defined as the study of allocation of scarce resources to satisfy individual wants or desires. The latter is perhaps the best way to broadly define the study of economics in general. The emphasis is on allocation of scarce resources across competing ends. You should recognize that human wants are unlimited and therefore choice is necessary. Choices necessarily involve trade-offs. For example, if you wish to acquire an MBA degree, you must take time off to devote to study. Your time has many uses, and when you devote more time to study, you are allocating it to a particular use in order to achieve your goal. Economics would be a most uninteresting subject if resources were unlimited and no trade-offs was involved in decision making. There are many general insights economists have gained into how the economy functions. Economic theory ties together economists' terminology and knowledge about economic institutions. An economic institution is a physical or mental structure that significantly influences economic decisions. Corporations, governments, markets are all economic institutions. Similarly, cultural norms are the standards people use when they determine whether a particular activity or behavior is acceptable. For example, Hindus avoid meat and fish on Tuesdays. This has an economic dimension as it has a direct impact on the sale of these items on Tuesdays. Further, economic policy is the action usually taken by the government to influence economic events. And finally, economic reasoning helps in thinking like an economist. Economists analyze questions and issues on the basis of trade-offs, that is, they compare the cost and the benefit of every issue and make decisions based on those costs and benefits. The market is perhaps the single most important and complex institution in our economy. A market is not necessarily a physical location, but a description of any state that involves exchange. The exchange could be instantaneous or it could be over time, that is, exchange which is agreed today, but where the transaction takes place, say after 3 months. You will learn in this course the myriad functions that markets perform, most significantly, bringing buyers and sellers together. Markets could be competitive or monopolistic, with a large number of firms or a small number of firms, with free entry and exit, or government licensing restricting entry of firms, and so on. The major point is that firms operate in different types of markets and use the well-established principles of managerial economics to improve profitability. Managerial economics draws on economic analysis for such concepts as cost, demand, profit, and competition. It attempts to bridge the gap between the purely analytical problems that intrigue many economic theorists and the day-to-day decisions that managers must face. It offers powerful tools and approaches for managerial policy making. It will be relevant to present here several examples illustrating the problems that managerial economics can help to address. These also explain how managerial economics is an integral part of business. Demand, supply, cost, production, market, competition, price, etc. are important concepts in real business decisions. Fundamental nature of managerial economics. A close relationship between management and economics has led to the development of managerial economics. Management is the guidance, leadership, and control of the efforts of a group of people towards some common objective. While this description does inform about the purpose or function of management, it tells us little about the nature of the management process. Kuntz and O'Donnell define management as the creation and maintenance of an internal environment in an enterprise where individuals working together in groups can perform efficiently and effectively towards the attainment of group goals. Thus, management is coordination, an activity or an ongoing process, a purposive process, an art of getting things done by other people. On the other hand, economics, as stated above, is engaged in analyzing and providing answers to manifestations of the most fundamental problem of scarcity. Scarcity of resources results from two fundamental facts of life. Human wants are virtually unlimited and insatiable, and economic resources to satisfy these human demands are limited. Thus, we cannot have everything we want. We must make choices broadly in regard to the following: what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. These three choice problems have become the three central issues of an economy. Economics has developed several concepts and analytical tools to deal with the question of allocation of scarce resources among competing ends. The non-trivial problem that needs to be addressed is how an economy, through its various institutions, solves or answers the three crucial questions posed above. There are three ways by which this can be achieved. 1. Entirely by the market mechanism. 2. Entirely by the government. Or finally, and more reasonably, by a combination of the first two approaches. Realistically, all economies employ the last option, but the relative roles of the market and government vary across countries. For example, in India, the market has started playing a more important role in the economy, while the government has begun to withdraw from certain activities. Thus, the market mechanism is gaining importance. A similar change is happening all over the world, including in China. But there are economies such as Myanmar and Cuba where the government still plays an overwhelming part in solving the resource allocation problem. Essentially, the market is supposed to guide resources to their most efficient use. For example, if the salaries earned by MBA degree holders continue to rise, there will be more and more students wanting to earn the degree and more institutes wanting to provide such degrees to take advantage of this opportunity. The government may not force this to happen. It will happen on its own through the market mechanism. The government, if anything, could provide a regulatory function to ensure quality and consumer protection. According to the central deduction of economic theory, under certain conditions, market allocate resources efficiently. Efficiency has a special meaning in this context. The theory says that markets will produce an outcome such that, given the economy's scarce resources, it is impossible to make anybody better off without making somebody else worse off. In rich countries, markets are too familiar to attract attention, yet certain awe is appropriate. Let us take an incident where Soviet planners visited a vegetable market in London during the early days of perestroika. They were impressed to find no queues, shortages, or mountains of spoiled and unwanted vegetables. They took their hosts aside and said, "We understand you have to say it's all done by supply and demand, but can't you tell us what's really going on? Where are your planners and what are their methods?" The essence of the market mechanism is indeed captured by the supply and demand. At the place where the curves intersect, a price is set such that demand equals supply. There and only there, the benefit from consuming one more unit exactly matches the cost of producing it. If output were less, the benefit from consuming more would exceed the cost of producing it. If output were higher, the cost of producing the extra units would exceed the extra benefits. So, the point where supply equals demand is efficient. However, the conditions for market efficiency are extremely demanding, far too demanding ever to be met in the real world. The theory requires perfect competition. There must be many buyers and sellers. Goods from competing suppliers must be indistinguishable. Buyers and sellers must be fully informed and markets must be complete. That is, there must be markets not just for bread here and now, but for bread in many states of the world. In other words, market failure is pervasive. It comes in four main varieties. 1. Monopoly. By reducing his sales, a monopolist can drive up the price of his good. His sales will fall but his profits will rise. Consumption and production are less than the efficient amount, causing a deadweight loss in welfare. 2. Public goods. Some goods cannot be supplied by markets. If you refuse to pay for a new coat, the seller will refuse to supply you. If you refuse to pay for national defense, the good cannot easily be withheld. You might be tempted to let others pay. The same reasoning applies to other non-excludable goods such as law and order, clean air, and so on. Since private sellers cannot expect to recover the costs of producing such goods, they will fail to supply them. 3. Externalities. Making some goods cause pollution. The cost is borne by people with no say in deciding how much to produce. Consuming some goods, education, anti-lock brakes, spreads benefit beyond the buyer. Again, this will be ignored when the market decides how much to produce. In the case of good externalities, markets will supply too little. In the case of bads, too much. 4. Information. In some ways, a special kind of externality, this deserves to be mentioned separately because of the emphasis placed upon it in recent economic theory. To see why information matters, consider the market for used cars. A buyer lacking reliable information may see the price as providing clues about a car's condition. This puts sellers in a quandary. If they cut prices, they may only convince people that their cars are rubbish. The labor market, many economists believe, is another such market for lemons. This may help to explain why it is so difficult for the unemployed to price themselves into work. When markets fail, there is a case for intervention. But two questions need to be answered first. How much does market failure matter in practice? And can governments put the failure right? Markets often correct their own failures. In other cases, an apparent failure does nobody any harm. In general, market failure matters less in practice than is often supposed. Monopoly, for instance, may seem to preclude an efficient market. This is wrong. The mere fact of monopoly does not establish that any economic harm is being done. If a monopoly is protected from would-be competitors by high barriers to entry, it can raise its prices and earn excessive profits. If that happens, the monopoly is undeniably harmful. But if barriers to entry are low, lack of actual competitors does not prove that the monopoly is damaging. The threat of competition may be enough to make it behave as though it were a competitive firm. Many economists would accept that an American multinational technology corporation, for instance, is a near monopolist in some parts of the personal computer software business. Yet, would argue that the firm is doing no harm to consumers because its markets remain highly contestable. Because of that persistent threat of competition, the company prices its products keenly. In this and in other ways, it behaves as though it were a smaller firm in a competitive market. Even on economic grounds, there is no tidy answer to the question of where the boundary between state, that is governments, and markets should lie. Markets do fail because of monopoly, public goods, externalities, lack of information, and for other reasons. But more than critiques allow, markets find ways to mitigate the harm, and that it is a task at which governments have often been strikingly unsuccessful. All in all, a strong presumption in favor of markets seems wise. This is not because classical economic theory says so, but because experience seems to agree. And, as stated above, the real world seems to be moving in the direction of placing more reliance on markets than on governments. Scope of managerial economics. From the point of view of a firm, managerial economics may be defined as economics applied to problems of choice or alternatives and allocation of scarce resources by the firms. Thus, managerial economics is the study of allocation of resources available to a firm or a unit of management among the activities of that unit. Managerial economics is concerned with the application of economic concepts and analysis to the problem of formulating rational managerial decisions. There are 4 groups of problem in both decisions making and forward planning. 1. Resource allocation. Scarce resources have to be used with utmost efficiency to get optimal results. These include production programming and problem of transportation, etc. How does resource allocation take place within a firm? Naturally, a manager decides how to allocate resources to their respective uses within the firm, while, as stated above, the resource allocation decision outside the firm is primarily done through the market. Thus, one important insight you can draw about the firm is that within its resources are guided by the manager in a manner that achieves the objectives of the firm. 2. Inventory and queuing problem. Inventory problems involve decisions about holding of optimal levels of stocks of raw materials and finished goods over a period. These decisions are taken by considering demand and supply conditions. Queuing problems involve decisions about installation of additional machines or hiring of extra labor in order to balance the business lost by not undertaking these activities. 3. Pricing problem. Fixing prices for the products of the firm is an important decision-making process. Pricing problems involve decisions regarding various methods of prices to be adopted. 4. Investment problem. Forward planning involves investment problems. These are problems of allocating scarce resources over time. For example, investigating in new plants, how much to invest, source of funds, etc. Study of managerial economics essentially involves the analysis of certain major subjects like the business firm and its objectives, demand analysis, estimation and forecasting, production and cost analysis, pricing theory and policies, profit analysis with special reference to break-even point, capital budgeting for investment decisions, competition. Demand analysis and forecasting help a manager in the earlier stage in choosing the product and in planning output levels. A study of demand elasticity goes a long way in helping the firm to fix prices for its products. The theory of cost also forms an essential part of this subject. Estimation is necessary for making output variations with fixed plants or for the purpose of new investments in the same line of production or in a different venture. The firm works for profits, and optimal or near maximum profits depend upon accurate price decisions. Theories regarding price determination under various market conditions enable the firm to solve the price fixation problems. Control of costs, proper pricing policies, break-even analysis, alternative profit policies are some of the important techniques in profit planning for the firm, which has to work under conditions of uncertainty. Thus, managerial economics tries to find out which course is likely to be the best for the firm under a given set of conditions. Appropriate definitions. According to McNair and Merriam, managerial economics is the use of economic modes of thought to analyze business situations. According to Professor Ivan J. Douglas, managerial economics is concerned with the application of economic principles and methodologies to the decision-making process within the firm or organization under the conditions of uncertainty. Spencer and Siegelman define it as the integration of economic theory with business practices for the purpose of facilitating decision-making and forward planning by management. According to Hailstones and Rothwell, managerial economics is the application of economic theory and analysis to practice of business firms and other institutions. A common thread runs through all these descriptions of managerial economics, which is using a framework of analysis to arrive at informed decisions to maximize the firm's objectives, often in an environment of uncertainty. It is important to recognize that decisions taken while employing a framework of analysis are likely to be more successful than decisions that are knee-jerk or gut feel decisions. Managerial economics and other disciplines. Managerial economics is linked with various other fields of study like microeconomic theory. As stated in the introduction, the roots of managerial economics spring from microeconomic theory. Price theory, demand concepts, and theories of market structure are few elements of microeconomics used by managerial economists. It has an applied bias as it applies economic theories in order to solve real-world problems of enterprises. Macroeconomic theory. This field has little relevance for managerial economics, but at least one part of it is incorporated in managerial economics, that is, national income forecasting. The latter could be an important aid to business condition analysis, which in turn could be a valuable input for forecasting the demand for specific product groups. Operations research. This field is used in managerial economics to find out the best of all possibilities. Linear programming is a great aid in decision-making in business and industry, as it can help in solving problems like determination of facilities on machine scheduling, distribution of commodities, and optimum product mix, etc. Theory of decision-making. Decision theory has been developed to deal with problems of choice or decision-making under uncertainty, where the applicability of figures required for the utility calculus are not available. Economic theory is based on assumptions of a single goal, whereas decision theory breaks new grounds by recognizing multiplicity of goals and persuasiveness of uncertainty in the real world of management. Statistics. Statistics help in empirical testing of theory. With its help, better decisions relating to demand and cost functions, production, sales, or distribution are taken. Managerial economics is heavily dependent on statistical methods, management theory, and accounting. Maximization of profit has been regarded as a central concept in the theory of the firm in microeconomics. In recent years, organization theorists have talked about satisfying instead of maximizing as an objective of the enterprise. Accounting data and statements constitute the language of business. In fact, the link is so close that managerial accounting has developed as a separate and a specialized field in itself. Economic analysis. Economic activity is the constant effort to match ends to means because of scarcity of resources. The optimal economic activity is to maximize the attainment of ends, the means, and their scarcities, or to minimize the use of resources given the ends and their priorities. Decision making by management is truly economic in nature because it involves choices amongst a set of alternative courses of action. The optimal decision making is an act of optimal economic choice, considering objectives and constraints. This justifies an evaluation of managerial decisions through concepts, precepts, tools, and techniques of economic analysis of the following types. Micro and macro analysis. In microanalysis, the problem of choice is focused on single individual entities like a consumer, a producer, a market, etc. Macroanalysis deals with the problem in totality like national income, general price level, etc. Partial and general equilibrium analysis. To attain the state of stable equilibrium, the economic problem may be analyzed part by part, one at a time, assuming other things remaining the same. This is partial equilibrium analysis. In general, equilibrium analysis, the assumption of given or other things remaining equal may be relaxed and interdependence or interactions among variables may be allowed. Static, comparative static, and dynamic analysis. This is in reference to the time dimension. A problem may be analyzed, allowing no change at a point of time, static, allowing once for all change at a point of time, comparative static, allowing successive changes over a period of time, dynamic. Positive and normative analysis. In positive economic analysis, the problem is analyzed in objective terms based on principles and theories. In normative economic analysis, the problem is analyzed based on value judgment. In simple terms, positive analysis is what it is and normative analysis is what it should be. For example, CEOs in private Indian enterprises earn 15 times as much as the lowest paid employee is a positive statement, a description of what is. A normative statement would be that CEOs should be paid 4 to 5 times the lowest paid employee. Basic characteristics. Decision making. Managerial economics serve as a link between traditional economics and the decision-making sciences for business decision-making. The best way to get acquainted with managerial economics and decision-making is to come face-to-face with real-world decision problems. The basic characteristics of managerial economics can now be enumerated as: it is concerned with decision-making of an economic nature, it is microeconomic in character, it largely uses that body of economic concepts and principles which is known as theory of the firm. It is goal-oriented and prescriptive. Managerial economics is both conceptual and metrical. It includes theory with measurement. Managerial economics should be thought of as applied microeconomics, which focuses on the behavior of the individual actors on the economic stage, firms and individuals. Summary. Managerial economics is used by firms to improve their profitability. It is the economics applied to problems of choices and allocation of scarce resources by the firms. It refers to the application of economic theory and the tools of analysis of decision science to examine how an organization can achieve its objective most efficiently. Managerial decisions are evaluated through concepts, tools, and techniques of economic analysis of various types. It is linked with various fields of study.
We were listening to the audiobook by the School of Management Studies IGNOU for MBA program. Course code Mmpc 010, titled Managerial Economics. Course coordinator Dr. Leena Singh. Voiceover by Renuka. Edited by Savita. Program assisted by Tarannum Jahan. Program produced by Dr. Manoj Kumar Singh. This program was brought to you by Electronic Media Production Center of Indira Gandhi National Open University.